So I did correctly predict Crystal Palace to get a result against Chelsea. That was the Big Six match. That was the team that was most likely to drop points, and it did play out the way that I saw happening with Chelsea dropping points. Now, match week 2 in the Premier League match of the week predictions. I told you. Now, I didn't guarantee a Tottenham result or victory, but I told you that if there was one match where a Big Six team could drop points, it was going to be the Tottenham Man City game. Now, Tottenham plus 1.5 was the play of the game. Now, I'm a little bit bummed out because I had both teams to score, and if Arsenal win the first half, if Dortmund win, then I would fall short one leg from nailing a 9-team parlay. I was pretty sure that City was going to score in the second half, so both teams would score, and it didn't play out that way. And quite frankly, City are awful. I think the players lack the mentality. I thought they played skittish, and I knew that Wolves were simply relegation fodder, that City didn't have many chances to score last week. They were just more clinical because of bad defending, but the problems are there. Reinders, I think he's a good player, but nobody can replace Kevin De Bruyne. Let's admit it. This guy's a generational player. To Johnny Reinders, he's just not consistent enough. He would be on and off during his time with Milan, and I just think that inconsistency is going to kill the guy, and he's going to need some time to adjust to the brute physicality of the Premier League. But it's far more different than the technicality of Serie A. But that's the one thing that you can take away from the first 2 weeks of the Premier League. I told you this was going to be a close game, and indeed it was a very close game between Tottenham and Manchester City. So, and I think because City was the team that dropped points, and I think Liverpool are safe to win against Newcastle, and I think they're going to be desperate to get some money, Newcastle, for the winter transfer market if they do lose and start out dropping 5 out of their first 6 points. And we'll see how Napoli do today. I think Lorenzo Luca is a fine striker, but Dean Huijsen, Hoyland, the Man United striker, it looks like he could be on his way to Napoli. I think he was a teammate of Scott McTominay. So, and Dusan Vlahovic could go to Newcastle. So the transfer window is still not over. I think it's possible that Newcastle will want to bring in Vlahovic, bring in a replacement. I think Hoyland is going to go over to Napoli. Even though I do like Lorenzo Luca, it would be wise for Napoli to bring in another striker as they try to navigate without Romelu Lukaku for about 3 months. That was a big injury at the last second. The Serie A begins today. Cremonese, well, I think Parma were newly promoted last year, and Milan lost to Parma early on the season last year, but I think they'll be much better organized, and they got Victor Boniface from Leverkusen and Luka Modric. So Milan are sure to make it to the top 4, but they're not winning the Scudetto this season. I believe it'll be between Inter and Napoli, and I think Juventus are too inconsistent right now at the moment and need an upgrade in the midfield to really do anything. Even though I like how we set up defensively, I like Conceição, but on the midfield, it's got to be a lot better. And then who knows what happens with La Liga, but Barcelona, Real Madrid haven't scored a goal in open play yet. And I think they need more time to gel with Xavi's new system. Barcelona were well rested. They didn't play in the Club World Cup, so Barcelona looks like they're going to win La Liga. People are doubting Napoli because they're playing Champions League. But I think Kevin De Bruyne, they still keep the same defense, and Kevin De Bruyne is there, and him and Lukaku, it's like clockwork. They know each other from Belgium, so I think Napoli are going to be in a good position to win the Serie A. Uh, but if they, I mean, they still had some key injuries, and they still navigated through some pretty clear injuries. They were without Buongiorno for around 2 months, and then there's another key contributor. I think it was Juan Jesus that was out. So they still navigated through injuries last year. But yeah, Champions League football. Can they navigate through Champions League football and injuries? I do think Napoli, they have to start out quick. They can't lose too many points early on in the campaign if they want to mount a Scudetto chance. If they were to have a very quick start, they can afford to drop some points around the latter stages of the group stage of the Champions League. They're not going to go far in the Champions League, so we'll see if they'll probably play in the playoff round. So that's more matches, and so yeah, this is there's always a team in the Big Six that's going to drop points every week, and then it's going to set up Liverpool and Arsenal and City. These guys, they play skittish. There's no intensity in the second half. These new players lack the mentality needed, like the old guard of Man City. They lack the mentality. Although Rodri and Foden didn't start, but some of these new players on Man City, they got to grow up really quickly because you got to have the right mentality to play for Pep Guardiola. The energy was terrible. They looked very, very flat. This is not like your previous version of Man City. Problems from last year are carrying over to this year. They still were exposed against Al Hilal in the FIFA Club World Cup. They were exposed. I think it's going to be between Liverpool and Arsenal for the Premier League. City are going to finish third, not because of what happened today, but because clearly we see that lots of problems exist with Man City, not creating chances. They only had 4 or 5 or 6 created chances. They were just very clinical against Wolves. It's not like they had all of the abundance of opportunities against Wolves. So that team clearly problems all across the board. And Wolves are terrible. They're going to get relegated. In fact, they're losing right now. This is why I took Bournemouth, because Wolves, I think, are going to be one of the teams that are going to get relegated this year. West Ham could be a relegation fought or contender. Oh, Burnley are winning. Okay, Burnley are winning. Okay, Sunderland's not going to get a result 2 straight weeks. Sunderland, Newcastle, though, will be a cracking game to watch. The 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 Tyne Derby, the Newcastle Derby, right? Well, Aston Villa looks like they will not make it to Europe next year. That's 5 drop points out of 6 if the result holds at Brentford get a win. We'll see if Man United are going to take advantage. We'll see how Crystal Palace does. If there's going to be a winner from Forest, Crystal Palace. But this is a golden opportunity for Man United if we see the likes of Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa slipping outside of the top 6. And if Newcastle slip, then this presents the opportunity for Man United to get back into Europe. And if 5 places are in the Champions League, then an opportunity to make it back to the Champions League. Well, there's no guarantee Inter Miami are going to win the League's Cup. the biggest threat to Inter Miami for the MLS championship is their in-state rivals, Orlando City. They already beat them, I think, twice in the league. And if Orlando City beat Inter Miami, then that's who they're going to have to beat to win the MLS championship. But at the end of the day, Orlando City's not going to beat Inter Miami every time around. They're going to find a way to beat their in-season nemesis in the League's Cup. If not in the League's Cup, it's not a big deal. But Orlando City's the rival. They're the in-state rival. They're the nemesis. If Orlando City beat Inter Miami in the League's Cup, then it's Inter Miami. They're going to beat them in the MLS playoffs en route to the championship. So Orlando City's the top rival, and right behind, I think, is Cincinnati. And who's the other team right behind? Maybe Columbus Crew, but no, I think Inter Miami beat Columbus Crew. But the biggest threat is Orlando City at the moment. We'll see how they handle Orlando City in the League's Cup. They were willing to sacrifice the League's Cup. Messi could have easily played, but they didn't prioritize that competition. Messi set out against Tigres, but they still found a way to beat him. If they really wanted to win that League's Cup, Messi would have started. Yeah, they were willing to sacrifice it, but the quality of Inter Miami was too much because of Rodrigo de Paul's signing. And so clearly they still prioritize the long-term health for the MLS playoffs. That's really the main message from him not playing against Tigres, is that they want him to be healthy for the MLS Cup. They just don't want the Supporters Shield. They have 3 matches in hand. They want to win the MLS Cup, and he is going to win the MLS Cup at the end of the day. And that's the one trophy I'm guaranteeing for Inter Miami this year. But it's still possible they can win the League's Cup. But Seattle Sounders in the FIFA Club World Cup having a very solid campaign. LA Galaxy, Marco Reus, they had a pretty good League's Cup group campaign. So and they won the MLS Cup last year, LA Galaxy. So there's all the quality left in the competition. It looks like it's all going to be on the MLS side.